coming to that because we also had a conversation in the break here. This is a room of leaders in infrastructure and future leaders in infrastructure. So actually, how can they make the jump from being a leader to the executive level? What is needed? What is the difference here? Yeah, what is needed?
I, again, don't think there's a direct formula for that. But for me, I think you have to be able to demonstrate that you can think strategically, and you have to, and that's, a lot of people use that word, and I think people get a bit like it's really difficult, but it's about thinking, you'll get it. But I think people use that word a lot and they don't actually know what it means. But anyway, it's about thinking strategically. I also think it's about, the big thing for me as I see people not making the jump into any leadership role is not being able to manage and lead within ambiguity, and how you as a leader are able to walk into a really ambiguous, it could be a transformation program, it could be a complex program, but how you can go in and not, when you're dealing with complexity, it's not about gripping it within an inch of its life, but it's about putting in structure and direction and vision for team members and being able to come into those environments with credibility and, I think, humility and your values, and to be able to turn something around, for me, is a real nuance that is probably not talked about enough around how people make a transition from leadership roles into executive roles. And then I'd also say that a lot of it is also about having a sponsor. And my personal journey is I had a sponsor, you know him, Mark Thurston. I got the opportunity to move into an executive role after being in a very senior role for many years at HS2. I was regularly exposed to the exec. I was regularly working on projects for the executive. I had executive coaches. So I had a lot of exposure, and I also had exposure through demonstrating I was able to deliver things for the executive that were complex, challenging, strategic problems. And I also did that with board. So that level of exposure gave me credibility for when my CEO turned around at the time and said, oh, you just had a baby. That's great. 3 weeks ago. Would you like to come back and do your first exec role? And I was like, yeah, okay. But so you've got to think about how you're networking internally to demonstrate that you have the capability to work strategically. But I think a lot of it is about how you're solving business problems using your leadership. It's not your technical expertise, right? We all know that you've got technical expertise. It's about how you can translate that to galvanize people around to get the outcome for the organization, I think, is what is a real differentiator when you move up in your career.
I normally call my project managers issue solvers because that's what they do. You are faced with multiple issues daily, but when you start and to answer the question from leadership into executive, I think being a person of your word, actions speak louder than words. Follow through on what is expected, and be an example to the people that can learn from you. I was fortunate enough at a very young age to have a brilliant mentor in my life. And who taught me a lot of things about the discipline of project management. And it's our responsibilities as leaders to do the same to the next generation. It's not just about ourselves and our own career, but if you care about the people below your career, and having understanding of where they want to go, I think you're on the right track. I make a point in my performance management discussions with my team to ask them one question, and I say, be brutally honest. There must be one thing in the last 6 months that frustrated you about me, that really you got upset about something. There must be something. Share that with me because I want to learn not to do that again. So be open to positive commentary about yourself as well as negative commentary about yourself. And don't hide away from conflict. Be open to face the music when you're wrong. Own those mistakes because that is the way that you walk the talk at the end of the day.
Right, thank you. So some of the common things that we are asked for when recruiting executive leadership level that often come up, probably at that level, sometimes a balance between results focus, which many people are going to have in project management, senior project management roles, and people focus, because you're generally then working at an organisational level, or it's a large programme that might be happening over 10 years, and you burn people out, or break too many eggs along the way, you're going to lose the followership within your team very, very quickly. So I think there's getting the right balance between a people focus and a results focus. I see is often a very difficult issue sometimes that project leaders might come across, where typically they might be from insights, if you've used that, from a very red project leader type background. Sometimes that balance that you can't, sometimes you're going to have to balance driving for that end result with what's good for your team and for the people. So I think that's a big factor. Collaboration, as I've already mentioned, influencing skills, business credibility as well as technical credibility, stakeholder management, and probably the ability to deal with more and more senior stakeholders as your career progresses. One of our clients, one of the largest contractors in the UK, has attempted to develop a model for how do they select mega program leaders, and they basically split it into the science, the art and the experience, with the science being the technical skills that you need, knowledge of good project controls or whatever. The experience very much being knowledge on the job, things being able to have the kind of the wisdom and the instinct to spot things that may be about to go wrong or could go wrong. And the third element, the art, is really about the interpersonal skills. And I think it's probably something that we've observed over the last 20 years has become a bigger and bigger factor when selecting mega program leaders, the importance of emotional intelligence. And you've got clients very, very frequently, and they list out a huge number. It's active listener, coping with complexity, seeing the bigger picture, being persuasive, political savviness. The larger and larger budgets and programs that people are dealing with, they're probably then going to be dealing with maybe beyond, local government level, and might be dealing with national government level. Ability to manage conflict, continual learner, active listener, people that value diversity, self-awareness, and probably one thing that we've been asked more and more is people that are humble. And I was never asked for 10 years ago, no one was ever asking me to find leaders that were humble. They might have wanted it, but they didn't ever voice it. And now there is a greater focus on that. I think a greater focus around self-awareness. So if you can't answer the question, what are your weaknesses or development areas, you definitely need to have a big think. And then the ability probably more to coach and mentor people rather than be a directive leader. And then probably the last factor, when it is a real mega program, is resilience. And is this individual going to be able to get through it?
I think just some practical advice on how to kickstart things is when you've finished your MBA, the first thing you do when you get back to wherever you've been is you have an appointment with your CEO and you say, I'm going to help you with this, this and this. And one of those would be the project or the dissertation that you're doing at the moment. But you'll have other ideas that have sparked off. You might want to suggest, can I shadow you for a week? See what it's like being in the C-suite? Or you might think, have you heard about this new role of Chief Projects Officer sitting on the C-suite? That's the person who's sorting out all your problems on all of your projects. Would you like one? I could do it for you. And it's making that difference, being on the front foot, making life easier for the people who are responsible for running the firm. And I think really importantly to me on a personal level, don't set your heart on going to the corporate world forever, because after a while it becomes one cycle of strategies, one cycle of business planning, one cycle of this, and there's a performance reviews. It is very, very time hungry. and you find you have very little time to actually deliver. So if you get a chance to be a program director on any major program, grab it with both hands. You'll love it. And you can always go back to corporate world and you'll probably be promoted. So just some practical thoughts there.